What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Conversation Station. This episode, we're going to be reviewing Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man on Disney+. The show just ended about a week ago, maybe a little less, and just wanted to talk it over and review it and just go through it a little bit because it's been such a fun show. So, yeah, let's get into it. Now, this Spider-Man show is set in a different timeline from the MCU, both the movies and the shows. This one focuses on more of a universe where Norman Osborn is Peter's mentor rather than Tony Stark, which I think is really refreshing and fun. And we obviously have, a different take on Norman Osborn than we're used to seeing. And we also have a just different take on Peter's enemies altogether. And how that'll play out in the coming seasons will definitely be interesting to see. How Peter got his powers in the beginning was Doctor Strange fighting a cosmic being and essentially opened a portal over the high school, and the spider dropped down and bit Peter, and that's essentially how he got his powers. And it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but it was really cool. The animation on the very first episode is like, it's a lot with Doctor Strange fighting and everything that's going on. Honestly, that's one thing that feels like it gets a lot better throughout the entire season is the animation. It just gets way smoother, way cleaner, and by the very last episode, the web swinging just makes you feel so good. I loved the animation and the web swinging. Honestly, give me more web swinging. I don't care how much. Just please give me more web swinging. I love watching him swing through the city and all the poses he does and things like that. Stuff like that just gets me excited. I love seeing it. It's just classic Spider-Man. The quips and the web swinging through the city is just, it's always going to be amazing. And by the end, the last episode, it's I feel like they've really gotten it perfected. But yeah, that first episode does really well to set up all of our characters. We have, his best friend, and of course all his, supporting friends and things like that he has. No guy in the chair, no Ned, as far as I've seen. So that's, at the moment, his guy in the chair is pretty much Mr. Osborn or Harry. So those two are kind of going back and forth between being his guy in the earpiece. And his best friend Nico kind of finds out about him being Spider-Man later in the season, honestly after Harry, and she kind of feels a bit betrayed, which is totally understandable. But Harry only found out by accident. Same, and Mr. Osborn only found out due to, Spider-Man was in his building and he essentially got caught on camera. So, which is obvious. You're in a billionaire tech genius's building. So, what else? Well, not tech genius, but he has a lot of obviously technically advanced stuff in his building and a lot of geniuses in his building. So you just got to imagine that, he's smart enough to have cameras pretty much everywhere. And that's, how Peter gets caught as Spider-Man. And it's really cool. It's cool that they did the whole internship thing. Norman brings him in, has them working on all these separate projects. We got Amadeus Cho, and we have Dr. Connors with still the missing arm. So, going to see whether or not she comes into being a enemy of Peter Parker's, in what way, or how they write that in, because as of now she's pretty friendly with him, on friendly terms. So and obviously as we get into the later episodes of the series, Peter gets hurt. Mr. Osborn tries to help him out, but in the whole craziness of things, they take some of Peter's blood, which obviously Peter is not okay with, but he's practically been knocked out. So it's just he doesn't really have any control over what's happening. And so, we obviously see how that, plays out later in the very last episode, but whether or not that'll have any impact further down the line is definitely something that's going to be worth watching, worth seeing, and worth being interested in. Charlie Cox returning as Daredevil for this show was absolutely exciting. It was just a cool little tie-in, even though, again, this is a separate universe from everything that's going on in the main MCU line, but it's just cool to have some characters drop in. We had Iron Man drop in, but it obviously wasn't Robert Downey Jr. And so, just characters may come back, but they obviously won't be their MCU counterparts or the actors playing them, but that's okay. We get small little drops like Charlie Cox being in there, and that's just awesome. And with his show set to premiere today with the 2 episodes, I'm extremely excited. I can't wait to watch it and give the review on that. My hope was to watch the 2 episodes tonight and give the review on that, but with work and everything, I just didn't get time to sit down and do it. So I just wanted to release this one, and I'm probably going to review it either tomorrow or the next day. So make sure to watch out for that one. Extremely excited. But 2 villains were made prominent in this season, and that's Doc Ock and Scorpion. Scorpion was more of a street level villain, with him being like a gang leader and like someone who's just willing to take it really far for the gang. So that was really cool. And then Doc Ock, which obviously he was the cast out of Oscorp, and he was selling weapons to street level people and basically giving street level people superpowers. So that was really cool. And to see how he's in the end he has his build for his tentacles, and he even kind of used some of the tentacles to attack some of the people who came to get him. So we will be seeing Doc Ock again. That's absolutely certain. But yeah, Peter's enemies, and they also did a really good job of like Peter gets his butt kicked a lot, and that's fair because he holds back a lot, and he obviously doesn't put his full power forward because he doesn't want to hurt anybody. And I mean, because he's a hero, his job is to just stop the bad guys. He doesn't want to kill the bad guys. But just to see how much he's willing to take, and he always gets back up because he's Spider-Man. And, just seeing him grapple with that, not being the bad person, not being the person that goes too far, even though they could, And I've seen a post recently that was like I love the realness of the fact that like sometimes Peter or Spider-Man gets hit in the face so hard they genuinely just are like, am I cut out for this? Do I even want to do this anymore? Like sometimes he just gets rocked so hard that just he contemplates life and is like, do I still want to do this? It's like, so then they kind of added that like aspect in there because there's a few times where he gets rocked and he's just like, oh, this sucks. But it's like, no, you're a hero, you're Spider-Man, shake it off, you got this. So that was pretty cool. That little aspect of it was cool. And they did a really great job with the quips, when he comes in and, does his classic Spider-Man quips. That was awesome. I mean, they did a perfect job with that. Another cool little storyline that they like we saw kind of evolve before our eyes was the creation of Tombstone. Now, obviously, when he gets his nickname, it's very obvious, okay, now he's Tombstone, but we just weren't sure how he was going to get his power. I wasn't sure how he was going to get his powers or how they were going to go about, just giving it to him. And we see an Oscorp van blow up or get damaged, and then he's either locked in or he gets sprayed with some type of gas, and that's what essentially makes him indestructible. Whether or not we'll see more of a continuation of that is definitely going to be interesting. Whether or not he'll actually turn out to be a Spider-Man villain, or they'll try to work him in as like some kind of anti-hero where it's like back and forth, where like him and Peter are still friends, but he's obviously doing bad things or like semi-bad things, for whatever. It could be like a back and forth, crossing the line or walking the line of being good or bad. And, obviously Peter will try to pull him in the other direction. So to see how that is going to play out is definitely going to be interesting. But Peter is making time with Tombstone's ex-girl. And she's starting to taking a liking to Peter. So that obviously could cause some rifts where we get them two being obviously not very close or very good friends. So whether or not that ends up being the dynamic they go for is... that's definitely a possibility. Another huge bombshell at the very end of the last episode, and if you haven't seen it, I turn this episode off now and go watch it. But Peter's dad is alive, and he's in prison for some reason. Now that's a big one. I don't know, maybe I just haven't read enough. I haven't read very many Spider-Man comics, except for the ones that I have. But maybe I just need to read more. But I didn't know there was a world where Peter's dad was alive and in prison. So I definitely want to see what that is and how that comes into play. Now, an obvious question of his dad being in prison is why? What landed his dad in prison? Usually his dad's a scientist, so my guess would be it has to do something with that. But hopefully it gets explained in Season 2, and we get to find out just how much Peter knows about what's going on with his dad and what's going on with his family in general. We've heard references to Ben, but we haven't heard what exactly happened to him, but we can obviously all assume it was the usual storyline because every Spider-Man loses their Uncle Ben in just about the same way. Obviously the key factors of Spider-Man's story are still there, so that part of it is never going to change. But as far as, having new storylines and having these cool different little, odds and ends, Daredevil obviously had a spy in Oscorp by the end of it, so that's, we're going to see who, why, and what he's trying to find. Obviously, we see that Osborn is not, obviously he is who we think he is, but he's not who he says he is. He's swindling the kids. He brings in Peter, Amadeus, and a group full of very talented kids and has them work on all these individual projects. And by the end of it, we find out that he does have an end goal. He wants to open a portal between, Earth and space, and he's just trying to, basically play a game of catch up. He feels like the superpowered people of the world have, just a really good up on everybody else, and that the regular humans need to level the playing field, and he thinks Spider-Man can help. And Peter, just Peter could help. And they do. They use it to open that portal, and that ends up being the monster that comes through that Doctor Strange ends up fighting that leads to Peter getting his powers. So, and that's another, big crazy explanation is so Peter essentially created himself to be Spider-Man. So how that affects anything or everything is definitely a huge question. Whether or not it comes into play at all is definitely weird. Or if that's just the baseline explanation. Hey, he created himself as Spider-Man. Doctor Strange opened a hole in time, and that's just how it happened. So it's just a clean cut explanation of how. It wasn't a spider from another universe. It wasn't something that wasn't supposed to be there. It's just clean cut. It was just a time difference. It's one of those chicken or the egg things. Who created who first? What created what first? So that's, it's really cool to see how, that was created. And if that just ends up being the storyline, just to say that that's how he became Spider-Man, that's really cool. Really cool way just to kind of tie up those both ends and keep it as a straight line story. More supporting characters I can expect for the next season. I'm really happy that they kept this season on Peter. They didn't really stray and go into everybody else's storylines and everybody else's home life and everybody else's small little details, except for maybe Tombstone a little bit, but that's to tell his story of how he became Tombstone. So they don't really dive into too many unnecessary stories or too many unnecessary situations that don't need to be there. We're there to see Peter, to see Spider-Man, to see what he does, why he does it, and how he does it, and that's what they give you. The story just focuses heavily on Peter, and I think that's a good thing. That's with shows a lot nowadays, even shows revolved around one simple character, they do a lot of just branching off and trying to get you to be ingrained in all the characters when most of all you come back to that root character, the one you were rooting for the whole time, the one you came to see, and so they give us a really good healthy dose of that. And the suits are phenomenal. We get really good suits all through the season up until the last episode when we get his classic blue and red suit, and he just looks fantastic in it. From fighting to just swinging to just standing around, honestly, it looks fabulous. You can't beat the red and blue. It does something, And like I said, those last shots of him just swinging through the city, they were just it was like a chef's kiss. It was just perfect. I was just, I couldn't help it. I was just sitting there yes, more web swinging. I just give it to me. I'll sit there and watch it all day. I don't care. He doesn't have to say nothing, do nothing. Just let him swing through the city. Let him do his thing. And that's, that was what I really enjoyed. And I want to see more of that, in the next season. They definitely added the guy from the Spider-Man movies, the original MCU movies, from the MCU movies, I should say. He's got a big beard and a big full set of hair, a white button up. It's the guy that runs the hot dog stand in the live action movies, and he tells Spider-Man to do a flip. But that guy's in the show, and he's in it a few different scenes. There's scenes with him walking by and stuff like that. So that's another cool little Easter egg from the MCU. Yes, it's here, but it's not here. It's in the Marvel universe, but it's not the MCU, but it's adjacent. So it's fun, just like all Marvel and superhero stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a level of enjoyment with the character of Spider-Man that I was hoping for. It's a really well-rounded show, and they did a really good job wrapping up the first season while also getting you ready for season 2. So if you enjoyed this show, let me know down in the comments. I really appreciate you anytime you spent watching my videos. Hope to see you again. Thanks for watching.